White Edwards.
There you go.
See, we
Sorry for the
passed the
delay,
first
everyone.
we passed the first test of being adaptable, like Chuck would say. Okay, are we good to go? Yes. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for your patience. Wanted to make sure we got those technical glitches out the way. And like I said, you just passed the first test of being adaptable, and thank you for being so patient. So today's webinar is titled Resume Direction. And as Chuck mentioned, my name is Gisela Belafonte, and I am the CEO of Resume Journeys. Resume Journeys has been around for quite some time. The focus and the key point of having Resume Journeys is to ensure that, yes, that your resume is ready for success, but along the way, um, on how to craft your resume, right? What is the importance of having a resume? Which I always say it's the first thing that a company is going to receive and be able to determine whether they want to move you forward or not. So we'll get started. Please feel free to um, look at. I'm listed on Resume Journeys on IG. I have an IG handler, Resume Journeys. So if you have Instagram, please feel free to connect with me on IG, and let's get started. So resume direction. What do you hope to accomplish from today's webinar? That's something that we should circle back to at the end. So when we're finished, I definitely want to know if all of your questions have been answered, and hopefully you all have your resumes in front of you. We want to make this interactive, but you also want to ensure that you have your resume in front of you so you can make any changes or edits along the way. So why resume journeys? As you guys can see, I have done, I think I lost count on all of the webinars that the National Black MBA has allowed me to participate in. It was a great 2023. Definitely looking for an amazing 2024, and I know it will be, speaking positively. But, I was able to assist a lot of individuals with crafting their resume. And resume journeys, a lot of individuals always ask me, why do I call it resume journeys? And, as Chuck mentioned, I do have a lot of years and experience within HR in itself, as far as hospitality is concerned, operational, you name it. But one of the key things is I wanted one day for someone to be able to help me on my journey. And when my journey started, I felt like I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't have someone that was going to take the time to kind of not handhold me, but just provide that guidance and insight as to what do I need to ensure that I'm going to be in the running for a specific position. And where does that start? It starts from your resume. So I hope you guys will feel the same way once we conclude at the end, that you were able to pick up a lot of information, make some changes on your resume, and have things that, or should I say, learn things that maybe you didn't know, right? Because we're always learning as we evolve. So let's start first by the foundation of your resume, right? Some might say resume basics. So let's start up with the resume foundation and what we need to have as far as the basic 101s. So we talk about first things first, your font style and your size being consistent. And guys, just so you know, I'm pretty interactive. So if you want to jot something down in the chat, please feel free to. If not, we can always do Q&A at the end. So font style and size must be consistent, right? That's really important. You want to make sure that when you look at your resume, you don't have, for example, let's say Times Roman 15, 10, 8. You want to ensure that there is consistency throughout the sizing of your resume. Black font is preferred, right? So if you have your resume and you're using your Word, the color should always be black. The content information must be up to date. Cell number and email address. You always want to make sure that it's up to date. Hiring leaders continuously say that they're not always able to reach candidates because maybe they left off the dot or the at sign off of their email. Maybe their phone number might not be accurate. It could be a house phone number. So you just want to make sure that that number is where you can be reached. Adding LinkedIn URL to your resume, that's also something that I think is a benefit for you. I know sometimes our LinkedIn period is not always up to date. Well, then that will take us to our next segment. And I think, Chuck, we talked about this maybe a few webinars back in regards to LinkedIn. Everybody looks at LinkedIn for the most part. It's the new Facebook, right? When networking for jobs. So you want to ensure that your LinkedIn is up to date. Okay. And then as it is, you can just add that LinkedIn URL to your resume. It should go on the top of the header where your email address and cell phone number are located. Spelling and grammar accuracy, please review that. That's so important. A lot of resumes do get rejected just based on spelling and grammar. Organize experience chronologically. That's important as well. So you want to make sure that when you're reading it, that you have the dates and they are consistent, right? You don't want them to be in different places and, they have to continuously ask you, well, when did you leave this position? When did you start this position, right? So you want to make sure that's organized correctly. Your education. So education must be listed. I'll start so you guys can start to give me some feedback in the chat. Having your education listed on your resume. Do you believe that your education should be listed on the top of your resume, on the bottom of your resume, not necessarily on your resume? What do you guys think about that in the chat?
I have mine in the bottom, just because I get graduated a while ago. But
Okay. Okay. On the bottom. Okay. Diana, Asha, thank you. Jane, Charlene, Debbie. Okay. So it seems like we have somewhat of a trend. We see a lot of, I have it on the bottom. Some individuals have it on the top. Okay. So I know the preference and a lot of individuals prefer to have their education on the bottom. And I do see that's kind of like a newer trend where we're leading towards having it on the bottom. It is at the end of the day, your preference as to where to have your education. But primarily, it does look better when it is on the top of your resume. And the only reason why is because when a hiring leader is looking at your resume, the first two things they're looking at is going to be to ensure that you have contact information, your email address, your career summary statement, and that your education, right? When you apply for a position and you go online and you apply for jobs, the first thing that they're in those qualifications that they're asking for is to ensure that, yes, you may have the allotted amount of years of experience, but then also the education, if education is applicable for that specific role. So it's easier to locate on the resume when it's on top, but yes, your preference, if it's on the bottom, that's fine. But you just want to make sure, period, that you do have education on there. If you have an expected or pending date of graduation, that does not mean you should leave your education off your resume. You actually want to put that on your resume with the anticipated graduation date, okay? Next one we talk about is metrics to show the scope of your work. So looking at your resume right now, all of you that have your resume in front of you, do you have any metrics that identify on your resume? And if not, that's fine, because we can always work on changing that, right? So that we can encompass some metrics using some numbers, right? For example, supervised 20 employees, completed a 10K project. I think that's really helpful to be able to show on your resume. And then that also leads into your experience that should not be more than 10 years, right? If the skill is relatively relatable to a past job, it must recognize and minimize in resume. So basically what that means is if you go back prior to 10 years, right, when you submit your application in the system, it's only going to look for 10 years of experience in history. If you have anything prior to that, not to say that it won't be included, but you can keep that on your resume and just minimize it on your resume. And we can talk more about that offline if you wanted some skills and pointers on that, especially if something that you did 10 years prior correlates with what you are looking to do now, okay? I'll just answer Jane's question as she wanted to know if the date of the graduation is required. It is not, Jane, and that's a really good question. You do not have to put the date in which you graduated. You can actually just put the school that you attended and the degree that was acquired. You could definitely leave the year out. Your length of resume. I always say that the length of your resume is subjective. You can Google as much as you want. And when you Google, you're going to usually find that you hear your resume should be 1 page or your resume should be 2 pages. Remember, keep this in mind. The experience that we acquire in our tenure of jobs does not always fit on 1 page. It does not always fit on 2 pages. And one thing you want to make sure is that you're not cramming all the information in. And when I say cramming that in, that means we have to change now the sizing, right? We have to change the size. We might have to cut down on maybe some bullet points, right? So we're kind of cramming everything in so that it can fit on 1 or 2 page because we feel that that is the expectation and it's not. I've interviewed individuals that have resumes that are 3 pages long, sometimes even 4 pages. It really depends on the experience that you have. Okay, so it's resume, the length of resume is subjective. But one thing I'll tell you is that if your resume exceeds 1 page, and let's say it's 2 pages or 3 pages, please don't staple your resume in the corner. When you're going on an in-person interview and you're bringing your resume, make sure that the resume, each one of them are loose. If you would like to use a paper clip, you can, but just make sure you don't staple it on the corner. Bilingual skills if applicable, and computer skills should be included. I think that's something now that, sometimes we overlook, right? Bilingual skills, whether it's advanced, intermediate, or beginner, right? Same thing for the computer skills that you have. If it's something that's self-taught, it's still a computer skill, right? It's not necessarily something you have to go to school for and acquire a specific degree for a computer skill. Microsoft Office Suite, for example, or you're typing where let's say you type 75 words per minute, right? You definitely want to make sure that, you want to make sure that that is displayed. So Deanna asked, why is that not stapling? It's just a preference that a lot of leaders, because they have to now turn over and bend your resume over. They have to turn the page and bend it over. So it's just I think it's just a preference that hiring leaders over the course of years, they just don't like it stapled. I mean, if that's something that you've been doing and it's been fine, I don't think anyone's going to say that you're not going to get a position because you stapled your resume. I think it's just a preference depending on the leader that has your resume. But just think about it. When you go into the next page, you now have to fold it back. So they just kind of would prefer if it's just specifically individual loose pages of your resume. And Jane, to your point, yes, they can and might want to scan in your resume as well. So if they have to scan it in, then they have to take time to take the staple out. I would say it's the little things in life, right? So, so let's move on. 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 So talking about the presentation of your resume, right? Let's talk about that. The presentation of your resume. Develop a professional summary or skill highlights. We want to say goodbye to objective. Does anyone still have objective on their resume in the chat? Yes, no? Anyone out there? Anyone still have objective on their resume at the top? It's okay if you do. I'm just trying to get a sense of who still has objective. Have we changed it to professional summary? Okay. Thanks, Debbie. Anyone else? Thanks, Asha, Jane. Okay, so I'm assuming the consensus shows that we do not have objective, which is great. So we want to make sure, thanks, D. Edwards, we want to make sure that we're not using objective anymore. We've transitioned over to professional summary or a different type of title to kind of start our sales pitch, right? You want to tailor your resume to fit the job. I spoke to Chuck, I feel like a couple of days ago, and we just talked about this. And I actually have a good slide coming up to talk about that. But tailoring your resume to fit the job. Utilize a job description for the position you're applying for and do not copy the exact job description, right? We don't want to copy verbatim exactly what the job description says. And by the way, we have seen that as leaders, as hiring team members, we've seen it where we've seen actually CVs and resumes that encompass the same thing word for word. It's almost like they just highlighted it, cropped it, and just pasted on their resume, right? You definitely don't want to do that. That's a big turnoff. You want to highlight the core competencies, again, including your LinkedIn profile. I'm going to continue to sell LinkedIn because a lot of team members and individuals, we do look on LinkedIn. I know for myself and a lot of other leaders, we have what's called a LinkedIn recruiter seat. And we are able to find a multitude of different candidates on LinkedIn, okay? Utilize the right context of words. The thesaurus helps. We talk about metrics, quantifiable measures, percentages, to describe your accomplishments. So definitely feel free to utilize that. I think that looks really professional on your resume. Gaps of employment, when we talk about, do you have, when somebody asks you, I noticed that you haven't been at this position a long time and maybe, you had to take some time off. It's okay to have a gap in employment. I think before a lot of individuals were a little bit nervous as to, I have to put something to fill in the gap. You can put something to fill in the gap, but I don't want you to feel like you can't mention, for example, the things that I see as I'm hiring individuals, right? Full-time parent, maternity leave, family management, a full-time caregiver, or a full-time student, right? If these are things that you were doing while you have a gap in employment, it's okay. But you want to list it, right? You want to put it on there. And these are just some of the ones that, I've seen that kind of are trending now as far as different employment gaps. Obviously, if there are other reasons why you have gaps in employment and you want to, come up with an idea on how to craft that, please feel free. We can always talk offline on, different types of wording that we can use. Save your resume in PDF to avoid unclear formatting when open on different devices. In the chat, how many of you guys have your resume saved on Word? Anyone else have their resume saved on Word? Thanks, Deanna. Thanks, Debbie. Anyone on Word? Tamika, perfect. Anyone else have it on Words? Charlene, Odell, okay. Okay. We're going to get to that, Odell. Good point. Okay. Kim, perfect. Okay. And then just flipping over, I know some of you had put it in the chat. Talk about PDFs. Does anyone save their resume as a PDF or both? Tanika, thank you. Anyone save their resume as a PDF or maybe both? They have both versions? Okay, Lauren. So yes, the right answer to that is perfect, Asha. So in Word, right? When we are creating our resume, we're creating our resume in Word. Now, when we save the resume and it's final, we can save it as a PDF. And the reason being is because a lot of individuals don't know when you send your resume through these ATS systems, right? Hiring leaders now, when we receive it, we can receive it and view it on our cell phones. Depending on if they're using a cell phone, maybe a tablet, an iPad, the formatting does not always open up correctly. That's why it's better to always save it on a PDF. It depends on the different word that you might have as well, but the formatting we've noticed does not save correctly and we're not able to view it correctly. Also, one preference that I have is, and I've seen this before, unfortunately, is that if you save it as a PDF, you just locked your document and you would want your document to be locked. You don't want that you submit your resume and somebody makes any changes or errors or maybe keystrokes, presses a button and then something changes. You want to make sure that you have security and ownership over your resume. So always make sure that it is PDF once you're saving it. Remember, you can always go back and edit it on the Word version, okay? Resume guidelines. So again, starting here, we want to utilize a resume builder. For those of you in the chat, did anyone, and I know there's so many different ones. Did you guys utilize resume builders or did you just use the one that's basically on your Word within your applications? Is anybody comfortable or has used resume builders before? Okay, Deanna, okay. And if so, share which ones you have used. Have they been successful? Do you find them to be helpful? Is it a good guide when building your resume? Thanks, Charlene. Okay, okay. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Jane. The Edwards. Yeah, so you can feel free to use a resume builder if you're comfortable with that. It kind of starts you off. I know some individuals, rather just use Word, and that's fine as well. Also, remove non-relevant positions. So if the position that's on your resume is not relevant, has no correlation, it's not a transferable skill that you can use, remove the non-relevant position from your resume. It's just sitting there, it's just added space, okay? Add descriptive skill sets and also an impactful career summary statement, okay? And then we talk about highlighting your education. So you're gonna see this a lot because I wanna make sure that I'm kind of driving that home, right? An impactful career summary statement, that is what replace objective. That is your sales pitch, right? 6-minute elevator pitch. You're in the elevator with the CEO or the founder of a company and you really want this job and you have that quick brief time period to drop your sales pitch, what is it going to be? That is the same thing that your career summary statement should echo. It should be impactful, okay? You want to make sure you don't just have one sentence, right? You want to let them know who you are as an individual, right? And all of the things that you do, everything that highlights who you are and your skill set. And just so you know, because I'm just reading in the chat, I know a lot of you guys use, where was it? Top Resume. Was that Deanna, Charlene? Just giving a shout out to you guys because I know one of the resume builders, you guys said you use Top Resume. Not sure if others have used that. I'll definitely have to check that one out and give you guys my feedback on it. So I took a look at some of the positions that's going to be at the virtual career fair, right? It's a little bit different. So usually when I do resume journeys, I don't usually present on this, but it's 2024 and I wanted to do things a little bit different and shake things up a little bit. So I took a look myself at some of these positions that are listed and I kind of wanted to go through a couple of them. I think this would be a great opportunity to highlight the qualifications and the responsibilities, and also see how it correlates to what you have on your resume, okay? So these are just a few. There are many more. I just picked out a couple of them. So let's look at the first one. So Henkel opportunities, senior manager business strategy. Can everybody see that? Hopefully you guys can. I know it's a little small, but I'll talk through it as well if you can't see it. So this is considered to be a job description, which hiring leaders, we usually call it a JD, right? So it has the qualifications and the responsibilities. On the qualification side, straight, the first thing it tells you that it wants 5 to 7 years of experience in business administration or marketing management consultant or strategic planning. So it just gave you three areas of experience that you can have to qualify. Second thing it talks about is having strong leadership skills, right? Excellent understanding of business operations and procedures, ability to liaise with stakeholders and influence people of a diverse range of backgrounds. So looking at the qualifications, right? And now we're going to pivot over to the responsibilities of the job. Support the development of long-term organizational strategy, present findings, projections, and recommended actions, identify issues, develop hypotheses and communicate insights and recommendations to key decision makers. Do you guys notice anything that stands out to you when reading the responsibilities for this position? What do you guys think? When looking at the responsibilities or even hearing some of them that I've read, what stands out to you as I read the responsibilities? Anything? Okay, Odell, thank you. Anyone else when reading that? I can go through a couple more. When hearing me recite some of these responsibilities, what do you think? Provide active guidance to team members in the course of key strategic projects. Okay, Jane, thank you. Coming over to the qualifications, excellent written and verbal communication with the ability to establish credibility and strong relationships with senior stakeholders. Okay, Asha. Anyone else? Debbie. Okay. So one of the things that I noticed is that, first off, on the qualification side, a lot of the qualifications can correlate as skill sets on your resume. Does that make sense? Right? When you think about your resume and your skill sets, and hopefully everyone has a section that's outlined for skill sets, right? We usually have, my favorite one of all times, which everybody should have this on your resume. If you don't, I need you to write down right now and put a line that shows that you have to input this into your resume, and that is communication. Okay? Communication is definitely number one. Nobody should assume that you could communicate. Communication is key, right? So communication, that's just, Gisella's favorite skill set. But when you look at all these other skill sets in here, right? Leadership skills, planning skills, right? Building strong relationships, organizational skills. So these are kind of, it's kind of a cheat sheet as to different types of skill sets that you can list. Jane asked a good question. How strict are companies on the qualification? It depends. Every company is different. But what I can tell you, Jane, is that, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's seven bullet points of qualifications. You want to at least hit and correlate and identify with at least 5 of those, right? There's also what we look for as their qualifications can be transferable as well, right? Everybody's qualifications can be different, but if they're transferable, that also might mean that you would be considered for the position. If you have 4 years of experience, can you apply? It's asking for 5 to 7, so I would try, to be at that mark. At least somewhere, I would at the very least be at 5, not 4, because it's asking for 5 to 7. So you want to make sure that, you at least come close. And yes, Jane, absolutely they do. They absolutely do, as long as you describe the responsibilities that you had within that internship. I'm going to go to another one so you guys can take a look at another opportunity. So this is from Estee Lauder, Chuck's favorite. Estee Lauder opportunities, senior manager of global risk, right? Qualifications and responsibilities, same thing. Anything different? Right off of this one, anything different that you notice that was not listed in Henkel, but is listed here in this position? Anything that stand out in the chat? Look on the qualification side. Do you see anything that you might have not seen? Yes, Charlene. Yes, Asha. Okay, so you are absolutely right. The qualifications for this position, Senior Manager Global Risk, that we noticed that was not identified in the last presentation, the last JD, was your education. It says it asks for 8 years of experience. 8 years of experience. So in this one, this is asking for 8 years of experience. So Jane, for this one, this is a specific, right? This one doesn't even give you a range compared to what we were talking about before. They want a solid 8 years of experience. Then you have your bachelor's degree. So you know, okay, I do not have a bachelor's degree. I probably should not apply, right? Because I do not have a bachelor's degree. It's also asking for, again, ability to quickly comprehend objectives and develop actionable work plans, prioritizing, adapting when needed, strong background and experience with audit methodologies and frameworks, including use of data analytics. Again, these are the qualifications that they're asking for. Then you go to the responsibility side, and it talks about, in addition, this person will also be responsible to monitor and report key emerging risks through the continuous risk management process, right? So a little bit more detailed. I just brought this to your attention because I want you to see that every JD is different. And I'm sure you guys realize that when you're applying for jobs, right? Every job description is different. Every qualification is different. So these are the ones that kind of stood out to me. And I kind of just wanted to bring this forward just so you guys can take a look at it. I mean, this position for Estee Lauder is posted. So if interested in you meet those qualifications, definitely feel free to apply. And yes, Jane. Yes. So Jane asked another good questions in this case or scenario. If you have a master's degree, right? It's asking for a bachelor's degree. So yes, you can still apply because you've already succeeded and you can check that off. And as a hiring leader, that's already checked off. You have exceeded. You would be in the category, Jane, which we would call preferred. Okay. When we write JDs and you look at them and they ask for specific degrees, let's say they want an associate's degree or you have a bachelor's degree, or the same thing that you just mentioned. I have a master's degree. Can I still apply? Absolutely. Absolutely. You now go into a preferred category that hiring leaders will now put you in because you have exceeded having a bachelor's degree.
Right. Can I just interject and give Gisela a 2-minute break? Thank you, Gisela. Perfect so far. Love you, as you know. The jobs that Gisela just presented to you guys, you notice they have the word senior in front of them, their title. Those other jobs are going to be asking for 5, 6, 7, 8 years of experience. Each one of these companies were good enough because they know we have a range of people that come to the career fair. They have from intern jobs to senior positions. What I want you to do is when you go to the career fair, make sure you see something that you like, interested in, that reflects your background and your experience because of what Gisela said earlier, that 2-minute elevator pitch. I hear people say 8 minutes. It's 2 minutes. Where you have to be in front of a recruiter and selling yourself on a specific job. You shouldn't go into the booth thinking because I have a bachelor's degree in biology and wondering what you have for me. Go into that booth knowing that there's a job in there that may not be identical to something you've had experience in, but something you like a lot, have interest in, and that your skill sets match the skill sets of the job. In other words, there may be a job in there that has a skill set of skills, but doesn't have the same title of the job you did before. That'll happen a lot. That's okay. That's where you have to explain to the recruiter, I have experience doing these things before. I communicate well. I pay attention. I'm a leader. I I have a lot of things that sound like all the skills that are required for most of these positions because they're not all senior management jobs. Most of them are entry level positions. That's it, right, Isella?
Yes, yes. So I was actually trying to respond to a couple of you guys in the chat to answer some of the questions. So I'm going to try to continue to do that so I don't miss out on any of these questions. But yes, to Chuck's point, the elevator pitch is definitely not 8 minutes. That's pretty long. Now that you think about it, you know, Chuck, 8 minutes, that's a long time. 8 minutes would be great, but you don't really have that much time.
No, you don't, but you can practice that in front of the mirror the day before.
Yes.
Let somebody watch you. My name is so and so. I'm here to seek the opportunity of working for your company. I like what your company does. Look at what, take a moment to check out the company background. Um, don't be like me and want to drop the CEO's name. I can get away with that. But if you're not there yet, just talk about what the company does generally and why that fits into your background, your experience, your goals and objectives.
Absolutely. So just to kind of fast track through, I did bring up Moody's as well. So, you know, again, I want you guys to definitely feel free to take a look at these positions. I know it was sent out to you guys, you know, prior to a lot of the positions, and I took my time and I went through actually all of them, which was quite some time this weekend, and I went through all of them and I, you know, highlighted a couple of them, and they're really good opportunities. But I really want to make sure that you guys are reading the qualifications and responsibilities one before applying, because at the end of the day, jobs have to be a fit both ways, right? It's not just about, okay, I just want to take this and I hope it works. You want to make sure that it's something that you are comfortable doing and that you can do, right? So just ensure that you're taking your time and going through them. Again, like we talked about, you know, this is Moody's Opportunities, which is a technical support analyst. The qualification says bachelor's is required, right? So that this wasn't bachelor's degree, period. This was a required. So that means it's a must. That's the deal breaker, right? So when you see the word required, you know that that's something that you have to have. If you have an associate's degree, for example, I wouldn't apply to that, right? So let's go to the next slide. So common errors to avoid on resumes. I like to touch upon this a lot because I see them all the time. Grammatical errors, just circling back. So 68% of resumes are rejected due to errors in grammar. Did you guys know that in the chat? Did anybody know or think that resumes would be rejected at all if they had like maybe a small grammatical error? Well, they definitely can, depending on if it's going through. Yeah, Debbie. A lot of people actually were not aware, but yes, it can be rejected. And this could be rejected whether it's going through an ATS system, which we'll talk about shortly, or if it's a recruiter that's just looking at it. And remember, recruiters do not take time like before, where they're spending a lot of time going through resumes. Recruiters receive too many to be able to do that. And they have a turnaround time where they have to be able to put forward candidates to that hiring leader, right? So you want to make sure that your resume is formatted, right? That you have a proper template that is aligned, that you have, I actually put that in there on purpose, an unprofessional email address, right? So we do get that a lot, unprofessional email addresses that do make us feel a little bit uncomfortable, words that you do not understand, hobbies, swimming and golfing, although I know some of us like golfing, but you want to make sure that that's not something that's put on your resume, right? Your home address is not required. Anyone will tell you that. You can YouTube it, Google it, think about it. You do not need to put your home address. All you need to put is your name, your phone number, and your email address. When you fill out your application in the ATS system, you are already putting in your home address. But at least you know that it's safe because it's in a system. It's not something where you're putting it on your resume. And if I myself, Gisela, decides that I'm going to go to Starbucks and I'm going to have meet candidates at Starbucks and take the resume with me, if I leave your resume behind, I just exposed your information. Now someone knows exactly where you live. So that is part of the Privacy Act. So you do not have to put your home address on your resume. Unfavorable resume terms. I thought this was good and I wanted to plug this in. And I've been seeing this a lot as well. Go-getter. Does anybody have that on their resume by chance? Does anybody have that on their on their resume? Go-getter, out of the box thinker. Does anybody have that? Sure, Ashna. So you do not, it is not required for you to put your home address. The only thing that's personal to you would be your name, your email address, and your phone number. Before, when we used to do resumes, you used to include your home address in its entirety. And to Charlene's point, yes, you used to actually put your city, state, zip, unit number, apartment number. You don't have to put that anymore. You could leave that off.
Gisela,
Go ahead.
I have a question. Is it worth their effort? Because I was thinking about this all along. I was a national recruitment person where everybody was subject to move. If you lived in New York, your job may not be in New York. Should people put on their resume open to relocation?
They can put that there. Yes, they can. It's not a requirement, but if they want them to know that they are interested in relocating, then yes, that can also be put on the resume at the top as well. So I thought this was interesting because a lot of individuals are not too familiar with ATS, right? And ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. I use a lot of acronyms, right, in the HR world. So ATS system. ATS are the different systems that you apply to. I've been fortunate to be able to work with a various amount of ATS systems, which I'll bring up on the next slide. But just keep in mind, when you apply for jobs online, right? When you go to LinkedIn tonight, you went to it last week, or you went to a specific website, every organization or company uses a specific type of ATS system. And the ATS system's job or purpose, it is a software and it's to go through and sort through resumes. That's what it's doing, right? It's not taking the place necessarily of a recruiter, but what it's doing is cutting down the job of a recruiter in half the time. So it's knocking out resumes that may not be a fit for the role, right? So that when the recruiter does get it, let's say it's 100 resumes, it will now sort and filter out, let's say 50, and now the recruiter will only have 50 resumes to be able to go through and present, all right? So some of these are the applicant tracking system platforms. Does anybody out of memory, when you apply for positions, have you guys seen any of these ATS systems? And the way you will see it is because when you apply for it, it'll usually be located on the bottom. It will tell you like JobVite, Taleo, Workday, Job Score, right? Yes, thank you. Somebody said Workday, PeopleFluent, Ultimate Software is another one. Deltek, like there's a lot of ATS systems out there. Greenhouse, these are very, very familiar, very, very common. So when you apply for positions, you're usually going through and what's called an ATS system. Trending skills. These are some trending skills right now that kind of just took the top rank at the beginning of 2024 and the end of 2023. Software development, web development, creative thinking, project management, cybersecurity, content creation and management, right? Social media creation. These are the trending skills that are leading right at this moment. Obviously, there are more and that I didn't include, but I just wanted to give you an idea of what's trending right now. I'm smiling at this one because this is actually one of my favorites. And I think everyone in the chat, when I ask this question, should definitely have some insight, right? So what does this say? Unfortunately, the position in which you applied has now been filled. We are impressed with your experience, but after careful consideration, you have not been selected. Unfortunately, we have decided not to proceed with your application at this time. Is anyone familiar with what these are called? Yes, Adele, that's great. Yep, Charlene, even better. Jane, did not pass go. Like in Monopoly, did not pass go. Yeah, so these are unfavorable letters that you do receive. Unfortunately, Tamika, correct. They usually come as automated messages that you do receive in your email if they're not moving forward to you with you, and they can come in various ways and so many different ones. So usually that's the look that most people kind of give when you receive this. I don't know if anyone's happy about it, but I know it's usually a look that I would say or have on my face when I see this. I'd rather have this look. Maybe not the Gina Martin per se, but I usually like the thank you for your application. We would like to move we would like to move you to the next steps in the interview process. This is what we need instead. So this is our goal. This is our goal. Our goal is to make sure that you're receiving more of these than the other one, okay? That we want to move you forward. Yeah, Odell, that would definitely have me feeling the same way. And Asha, I'm with you on that one. Absolutely. Everybody on this webinar, we want to make sure that this is kind of where we want to be, okay? So, dear Chuck, and yes, we have a Chuck on the line. As you can see, this one as well. And I don't think Chuck received this, but the person's name was Chuck. This is another, again, I just wanted to show you an example of another no thank you, but thank you for your interest, but we are not moving forward. How to pivot from your career path on your resume. Easy. Research the job description, right? That's the first thing. Include transferable skills such as training, past and personal experiences, or volunteer work. You want to make sure that if you're going to pivot from your career path, how do you do that? And did you research the job description to incorporate your transferable skills? Is the look more important than the content? Always, right? You don't want to leave out any pertinent detail. Again, it's all about sell, right? They have to know who you are. Pay attention to what you would like the interview to know about you. Proofread your resume or role play it while you're speaking with someone as you're interviewing, right? Ask additional people to check your resume. The content influences the conversation, right? And it does, if you really think about it. You want to make sure that you have the appropriate content. How to prepare for your virtual interview. I always say this is a no-brainer, but sometimes you just need a refresher. You know, one of the biggest things on here that stands out, the biggest things, you tell me in the chat, what's one of the things that's on here right now that you want to make sure you're doing even before you attend the virtual career fair next week? One of the first things that catches your eye is research the company. Research the company, read the job description and research it, right? Because you can't get to any of these other things until you research the company. So you want to research the company before you sit down and have that virtual interview. Some of the resume journey reminders, 8 minutes with each recruiter during the career fair. And just a caveat to that, the elevator pitch is not 8 minutes. It's similar to, but it's not 8 minutes. It's less than that, 2 minutes. Remember, if you utilize a cover letter, why are you the candidate we should consider for the position? Cover letters are really useful when you want to pivot, okay? If you want to pivot and do something else, cover letters are helpful. Thank you emails are great. Ask for virtual contact cards. And remember to clean up your social media. Best time to apply for jobs. Remember, I said this, if anything that you remember, is always early in the morning. When I post my positions, I always post my positions at the crack of dawn, at usually around 5, 6 o'clock. Some might say, what are you doing up so early? But I am posting my positions, or I post them late at night at around 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, midnight. Remember that. Chuck, I tried to speed through that as much as possible to get us to this point. I don't know if we have at least a few minutes to just answer some questions.
Well, I do. And but first, before answer any questions, again, I thank you. This is our 16th Premium Virtual Career Fair, and you must have made this presentation about 20 times because you did it before we started the career fair. The things I want to bring up and emphasize that you mentioned earlier is that this resume is a tool for all of you to get in the door. So if you're not at our career fair and you're just submitting a resume in to an ATS system, it's a 50-50 chance. That's why the resume has to be perfect. But on Thursday, you will be interviewed. I can guarantee that, which is the best part of the premium virtual career fair. You'll wait your turn, but you will go in and talk to a recruiter for the 9 companies that are coming. And that makes me feel good. But make sure that resume is good that you're taking with you. So I'll leave it at that. Yes. Questions?
Yeah, I had a question. So, you mentioned earlier, Griselda, you put like why I didn't just hear the reason why, like why it's good to apply for jobs in the morning.
I didn't hear that.
Like earlier, just a couple minutes ago, she was talking about how it's good to apply for jobs in the morning. I just missed the reason why.
You're a mute.
You're on mute. Was that
Well,
intentional?
it's a good thing I didn't say too much there. So yes, the reason why it's good to apply is because you become what's called the first applicant to apply for the position. A lot of leaders and a lot of organizations, there's no method as to when they apply, but one of the trending things is that we don't always have time to apply for positions throughout the day because we're running the operation and the organization. So what we do, a lot of the leaders, we do it at the end of the evening, usually when we are settled. Sometimes we have positions that apply and we have it on automatic. So we will post a position and we can preset when that position posts. So I don't technically have to be in front of my computer to post that position. I can set that position to automatically post at 11:59 p.m. and I can have it run for approximately 5 days or until I have enough candidates that I am ready to start interviewing. So it is always good to be kind of like the first individual or one of the top ones to apply for the position when it is posted compared to it being posted, let's say, for 12 days and now you just decided, okay, I'm going to apply for it.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Good. I can come up with another story. I've been doing this for a long time, and Isella may know that. Um, and the stories that I've come up with have been good, and they've been pretty bad. There's a combination of ingredients that come into play here. That's why it's so important that we take time to do this right now, what we're offering you. We don't want you to go in there and not do well of something that might not do well because of something we could have fixed or something we could have addressed. Giselle and I are fine. We've done it. We're just trying to help folks behind us to get in that position as well. And it's funny, true story. You'll get your best jobs when you're not looking for one. It never fails. Somebody will come up to you, ask you about your background, ask you about your education, and try and hire you on the spot when you least expect a job to happen. It happened to me a couple years back. The job paid $750,000 a year, and I didn't apply for it. It didn't have anything to do with the organization. They wanted my skill set. My skill set is very valuable, and I actually should have said 1 million instead of 750. Don't sell yourself cheap. Cheap. Get your full value when you can. Isella, anything else to say?
Yes, and just to answer a couple of them, I did answer Marvin. I know somebody from LinkedIn asked, and I did respond to them in
Okay.
regards to AI. So yes, AI is impacting as a lot of organizations are using that to cut down on time and to save time.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, it's no, there's no method, there's no like a formula as
Mm-hmm.
far as like, well, how can I beat or how can I compete with it, right? You can always craft your resume to ensure that AI and the ATS systems, right, as they're looking for keywords, which, I talk about that a lot as well, that we put keywords within the job description in our resume, right? And that goes
Right.
back to reading the job description, using some of the keywords that are there, not all, because you don't want to be a copycat and use everything, but you can identify keywords that you can encompass in your resume that when you're submitting it should be a shoo-in technically. So hopefully that helps Marvin, that individual that was asking that. I know Odell just asked if we can post the link to the positions. I think we could probably send that out as a mass email once we conclude to all of you so you can have some of an idea of the positions as well. And Jane, what does it mean when the position is reposted? We repost positions all the time. We can post a position, let's say today, and I can run the position for 7 days. If I don't find the qualified candidate for the position, I can repost the position after 7 days. So that's what we mean by a repost. That is why when you go on LinkedIn, you see positions, for example, and you let me know if I'm wrong. I see positions posted, and then all of a sudden I see them go away. But then I see them come back again. They're coming back again because they didn't find the candidate originally when they posted it the first time. So they just did a repost to yield more candidates.
Gisella, that reminds me of one thing, which actually the folks that stuck around to hear us ramble are getting the advantage of. If you don't see a job that we send out to you, but you see a job on their website and on their career section, print that out and bring that to the career fair. It's okay because the mere fact that they posted, it's a fair game. You didn't see because they may have 7 or 8 jobs or 10 jobs that are difficult for them to fill, and that's why they send them over. But there may be a job on their career page. Another reason why you need to go to the website and do research on the company, but go in there and see what else is in there for you to look at. Okay.
So I think I got a lot of the and Jane, yes, self-starter is kind of generic. Again, if you guys want any guidance, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Resume Journeys. On IG, you could DM me as well. I'm also on LinkedIn, so I'm not hidden. I'm very visible. I've been an operations leader for quite some time and have a vast amount of experience in HR, like Chuck had mentioned. But at the end of the day, I'm going to go back to what I said originally. You know, you have to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. And that starts with your resume. Before you get to anything else that you want to do, as far as acquiring your job, the only person that they're going to look at is your resume. Your resume is a person in itself, and that person is you. So you just want to make sure that you have all the pertinent information, you're doing your research for the company, you're having someone look over your resume, and you're making sure that you have all of the keywords and components that are listed throughout your resume so that it will help you to secure the position. At the end of the day, you can apply for 1 position, 10 positions, or 15 positions. You can apply directly to the website, or you can send your resume to the hiring manager. You do not have anything to lose. So always remember that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
someone
Chuck, I
asked
just
for
wanted
your email address, Isella. Can you put it in the chat?
Sure,
Yeah, sorry.
no problem.
You put mine there too. Yeah. You want to talk to me?
I think Marvin put the
Yeah. But and one of the things too, everyone, you can do this. We may have made you feel a little uneasy, or maybe not. We hope not. We didn't. But this is doable, very doable. You've gotten through life so far. You went to college. You prepared yourself. Thursday or any sessions like that are only a step towards your success. You'll be fine. And when you get a chance, stop working for somebody else. Go work, start your own company. Get out of that rut.
Well, I definitely want to thank the Black MBA. I definitely want to thank Chuck, and I want to thank Marvin as well. Again, please feel free. I do lives on Instagram a lot, and maybe, as a freebie, I'll try to throw one on a live. So if you guys are available this week, possibly tomorrow, please feel free to jump on the live and ask me questions. Again, I'm here to help you, and I want to make sure that you guys have all the information you need. Sometimes there's uncertainty where I'm not sure if I should send my resume. Maybe I should do another resume. Hey, Giselle, what should I do? So definitely feel free to use me as a resource. And thank you again so much.
Thank you, Gisela. Thank you, Marvin. And thank you, everyone. Have a good
Thank you,
evening.
guys.
Right. Be good.